Y'all remember that old file Queen Latifah had pulled the lady ID out her pocket, and she was like, and then she put it back in her pocket. Somebody should have checked them credentials, huh? I'm sorry. Oh, Lord. That's what came to me though. But I wasn't thinking about that before I had hit cut on the live. I just wanted to share that just in case. I might find it significant later. I helped myself remember a lot of things by saying it out loud. I found that to be more resourceful than to just be quiet at this day and age. It helps me remember a lot more. Intuition is at the bottom of the stack. Let's see. Oh, that boy, 144 when I said that. That listen, static in reverse. It says noises, anxiety, overthinking, distortion. There is no distortion around here. Somebody probably getting a fucking mojo bait. Somebody probably was in spiritual jail. Oh, it says bait, glitch, jammer in the game. This a fresh pay. So, these is like a different kind of coin. I like them though. Yeah, I like the illustration. It says B, perfect job, ideal love, quick wealth, temptation, trap, manipulation, desire. Ok? À tout à l'heure. Okay, so this card came out. Y'all see how pretty these cards is? So it says B, right? An attractive opportunity may hide a deeper cause. What am I being tempted by right now? I don't know. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from any kind of evil that might try to transpire against us, huh? Because ain't no way. Something is definitely clear to you. Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome to the live. Yeah, I don't know what this is. I'm going to get some clarifiers, though. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some clarifiers. It says the game, strategy, power, system, composition. Okay. It says invisible rules shape the systems and dynamics you are navigating. What rules am I unconsciously playing by? Y'all have to play by your own rules. They already have structure. You'll know by stepping outside of those structures that are invisible, that clap back, you're gonna know. Just pay attention. Sometimes you're not gonna know exactly how karma will react. I'm not saying go do nothing crazy, but I am saying be mindful of what you want and how it affects others. You don't want to affect anyone else. You could do anything as long as it doesn't affect someone else or something like a spirit else. But the spirits, you'll know by what happens. I don't know how to put that. Because you're not really gonna get the effect that you'll get if you hurt somebody else. Yeah, it's better. I feel like as long as you don't hurt nobody else and destroy something that hurts another thing, you good. You can play all in those bounds. And that's a lot to do. You know, insurance. That's what I'm hearing. Interference, distortion, confusion, blockages. I don't play games. And I don't play by nobody's rules. As long as it doesn't cause me to get in trouble. Yeah. And the only thing that gets me in trouble is doing things with people. I do things by myself. It affects no one. Absolutely no one. But myself if I get caught. It says avoid. It says emptiness, unknown, reset potential, an empty space opens, unsettling yet filled with possibility. That's why it took me so long to try to clarify it, because you know we have a vast array of people, and those are the types of things that you have to clarify. Now, see, if I was talking to somebody who knows me and knows what I'm inviting, then I would probably felt comfortable enough to leave it alone. But I'm probably still gonna draw some more understanding to that, because I don't want nobody to do nothing crazy. There are people out here who lack that compass that we carry as the chosen individuals on this side of the spectrum. Okay, and then those other ones who counterbalance the energies. Okay, and those energies are bound to it boundless possibilities. Okay, but I'm still gonna leave this out here to clarify. We have glitch, disruption, error, instability, awakening. Huh. That is crazy. What the fuck? Oops. Oh wait, I forgot this is not my show. If this was my show, then I probably would have more repercussions. But that's a good example. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So I have a show, and I air it on Thursdays at 8 o'clock. Right? And on that show, I signed on a contract that I wouldn't curse. So just now, when I cursed, it was just from a reaction of feeling like, oh my goodness, did I have a slip on air? Okay, that's a good example of what I meant. You know, it doesn't affect anyone, but at the same time, if I get caught, it affects me. That is a good example of where my mind goes with doing things, you know, because I like to curse. Some people don't curse, you know. I'm like, that's my thing. So that gives a kind of good shape to what I meant. But if I was to go outside and punch on somebody, that would be something that would have had to have came to some type of understanding or justification. Like, I don't just put my hands on people. But I will beat a bitch up if she plays with me. Oh. Okay. Had to get my first for a freshman. Love you better. Somebody don't want to walk away from my parasite. That's the first thing I saw. Y'all probably don't even know what it is. Y'all know what a parasite is, or how you feel when you have a parasite? Any kind of parasite. An unseen force is quietly consuming your energy or attention? What in my life is taking more than it gives? I'm doing well. How are you? Listen, this is like an open reading. So like if y'all stop me and get my attention, I'll answer a question. You know, but right now I'm just doing this because I'm passing the time. And I know whenever I decide to drop off the live, I'm just gonna post it on a random day. But yeah, somebody definitely possibly doesn't know how to protect their energy from some type of void consuming energy. Okay, it's crazy. I had just flipped the deck over just because I was finished shuffling it. I had got the cards I wanted, and void just so happens to be one of the cards. Internally, if you're suffering from a void, guys, if this is not an external force, for those of you who are ascended masters and know how to protect your energy properly, if this is coming from within you, it is a dragging feeling of procrastination, short-sightedness. You lose the ability to project a manifestation of imagination of your future from your highest timeline. It is because you dropped the vibration, okay? And you have to reevaluate what you are doing in your wake so you know where this insistent energy leak is coming from. That can be, for example, a relationship that's not really benefiting you in the way that you imagined it would be, and now you feel resentful or regretful, remorseful because of whatever purposes that it may have came from. Could have been cheating, it could have been lying, it could have been something that you did that you didn't mean to do. It could be you thinking about quitting your job because you're working too many hours and you're not able to have enough freedom to live the life that you choose to live. It could be you haven't gotten enough sleep. It could be you haven't had enough water. You know, anything could be the problem. It just depends on, you know, if you're able to catch it. Because the energy, once it starts building up on your mindset, it kinds of distraction. It's like a distraction. Everything is going to distract you from the problem. Okay? So you just need to take some time. Think about your life, where it is now, and break through those hurdles to reconnect yourself. Because, you know, in the soul, you definitely just going to be detached. You're just going to be okay with how the Most High is ordaining your steps, is what I'm going to call it. Because it's revitalizing. It's like restorative, you know, for me at least. I can only speak for myself. I be knowing when I drop my vibration, it be when I won't fight somebody, or if it be one, like I'm playing games that I don't want to play, like manipulation. Like if you see through manipulation and you're not the type of person that like to play games, it's draining for you because it's taking your attention away from what it is that you want to be doing in your life because you're having to think about bullshit, which is a distraction. You know, that be the shadow making itself physical in other people. Who have low vibration. Because if they have a low vibration, then, you know, they're easily susceptible to that shadow energy. Think about Raven. Think about Raven from Teen Titans. That's a good example of how all those different colors came from Raven, and she was the white one. Or Avatar. When you think about how he had to open up his chakras, they had an episode about that. Hey, Sakura. Right now, I'm just rambling until someone comes on here and asks a question. I'm rambling about what's in the energy. Just a general one. A stupid motherfucker that actually thought Karmic Endings just dropped a new episode on the show. And that's one of my faves. She definitely hits home, and I like the way that she does her reading. Karmic Endings, 1010. Yeah, something here, possibly an internal voice. It's coming from like a heartbreak from a very physical relationship. Probably took away a form of confidence, and you have to build it back up, sweetheart. Probably have to spend time with family or friends. Probably make new friends. So my story of how I learned how to use the gift of sacred sight was stop. Okay, so it's a long story. When I was a kid, I've always paid attention to like stepping on cracks and little, sweeping your feet and wearing one shoe and stuff like that. Like I've always paid attention. I always like metacognitively ask myself a lot of questions, and I always had the gift. I always had the gift, but it was a process that helped me understand that I was doing it, because I don't really know how to explain it. I've always had this gift of where I'm able to see deeper into something, and I would be told, that's not what that is, or this isn't how you look at it, from a very young kid. So when I got to be like 30 years old, I finally just pulled out a stack of cards, and I was just looking at them. I didn't know what they meant. I just was looking at them, right? And I just realized I had the gift, like you said. I was watching an episode of somebody using them or whatever as I was doing it, and I noticed that the cards were coming out in the same arrangement. And I was like, what the fuck? I thought I was going crazy, but it just consistently was doing it. And the things I would say were the same exact things that would be reproduced with the cards on YouTube and stuff. So that is what got my attention. But it would just be things that I would say, and what I would see in the situation or feel in the energy. Like, it was just natural. Mind you, if anyone here does numerology, I'm a life path 11, which is the natural born spiritual master. If anybody knows what that is, this is what one looks like. There's many of us, but everyone's unique in how they cater to their innate abilities, is what I'm gonna call it. I feel like this is like if this isn't that, I feel like this is, how does it work? Like, people can ask anything. Yeah. And it's up to me if I'm gonna, like, ask it on live or not, I guess. But usually, what I would do myself is do like a general reading. This is my first time doing like an open reading, like general open. So, I would just be saying things, and I'll be like, take it out. since there's other energies here. You're very curious. Are you going through like a spiritual awakening or something? What has your interest in this? Ooh. Did you hear me, Sakura? I wasn't either. I can relate to you on that. Like, I was born, and then I just started doing like the Baptist thing and the Christian thing because that's what I was taught. But when I was in this mind frame, I was just observing my reality. I was just observing patterns. I was observing. I said observing. I was observing patterns that just kept being repetitious in different time frames of my life. You know, because like I said, I would see things, but people would tell me that's not what it is. You know, because they didn't understand because of what they were taught. You know, so everything I know, it was just from observation of reality in front of me. You know, I never really was like the fantasy type of person, but you know, when I talk about it, it almost sounds like fantasy, but it's really not fantasy. You know, this is things that are being brought to the eye of the public through. Oh wait, let me put my phone on the charger. Okay. So I never was like the spiritual type. I didn't even know what spiritual was, to be honest. I just accepted what I was seeing, and I didn't allow anyone else to tell me I was crazy. And then I came to find the spiritual community once I had started seeing and just accepting it. You know, I didn't have an image to portray to family or lovers anymore at this point. So it was just like, I don't care what the fuck anyone thinks. I don't care if anyone calls me crazy, schizophrenic, or whatever. You know, because I never was diagnosed with those things, it didn't stick for me. And that's why when I started talking about the things, as a child I was super religious, but as I grew up a little, I didn't offend anyone. But religious felt like a story and coping mechanism, but I don't have much knowledge about spirituality. Okay, so let me break down another thing that I came to use. The scriptures, or the manuscripts that they call divine, benevolent, sacred. I use all of those things in order to navigate inside of the spirit, because everything is all created by God. And it's like when you like allow your mind to go in a place where you're able to pull it back from little by little, it's just like you start unraveling how funny God is, you know, from my experience. But my experience didn't fit everyone's experience. I just know I did everything without a mentor, without people I'm trying to impress, without any type of distractions, without any type of, you know, image that comes from doctrine. Everything I am doing and everything I knew came from sheer, no one's gonna tell me I'm crazy. No, like self-validation, 100% self-validation. It didn't even come with the confidence. The confidence came after I proved myself to be right. Because I don't want to look crazy. You know, I didn't want to look crazy. When I was telling people everything I say, it just seemed to happen. You know, and once I started building up that confidence, it was just like, here I am, present. Like anything I say. And I didn't do the, you know, spiritual journey, the spiritual understanding and studying until after. So once I had found myself to be lonely in the religious community, God started bringing people around from the spiritual community who was able to really kind of understand where I was coming from, about the angle of how I was able to perceive the things that were going on around me. Like it was like it was its own thing. That's how I know some people really do have their own journeys, and some people are better at learning from others, like in those platforms. Even though it's just, I don't know, it's tricky because you have to do the work yourself. Like you can't just go to a place and not still do the work. Like when you go to school, you still have to go home and study. And then you have to apply it to yourself, apply it to your life, and see what you like and what you don't like. And then keep going from there. Like everything is just like a nudge that you grow from. It's not something that you just carry outside of you. It's something that you embody. Like everything I am and everything I do, I have embodied it. Like it wasn't a prayer thing. It was a connection thing. Like I'm literally in relationship with this connection. You know, I don't know how to put it. And it's a nice feeling. It's very beautiful. And I love that. I feel like religion and being spiritual is important for some people. Like people feel like okay in chaos because they right. And that's one of the things that comes with this connection. Like I've been through, if I tell y'all some of my stories on this live right now, y'all would not even believe it. But I've been through some craziness. And I've always carried that feeling. I've always carried that feeling without having any forward knowledge of why. But even in the toughest situations, I literally carried that exact feeling with no motivation. It just came straight from inside believing that. And then after I just stopped trying to mix my feeling with other people's feelings, it was just like, I know you playing with me. I know you playing with me. Like peekaboo. High yourself, peekaboo. It feels like this. I can't even explain it. It's unexplainable. I just know self-love, self-validation, and like literally seeing things for what it is and not building yourself off of illusions. That is the only thing that I can give a person in advice when it comes down to the depth of my connection. And it's the High Priestess. The High Priestess sees beyond the veil. There's a veil of illusion and confusion that's being scientifically exposed. You know, ever since I started my spiritual understanding is what I'm gonna call it. There's been like resources and references to my experiences helping me believe and motivate myself. Like, okay, okay, okay. So I wasn't just thinking something crazy. You know, sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes I do feel like there's a God. Or sometimes I would hope there's a God, like in my country. Right now, there's a hunger strike going on. And I hope there's a God. And I hope. What country are you from? India. Mm, we can do. I've heard a lot of things about India. And I actually studied India when I was doing Hindu astrology. Are you familiar with, yeah, what's your sign in Hindu? Are you familiar with Hindu astrology? That's how I learned. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. Yeah, that's how I learned about the deities from out there, from studying the astrology. Okay, very traditional. Tell me about your sign. What do you know about your sign? Have you studied the Hindu astrology, or do you only go by the Western astrology? I'm sorry, I'm asking so many questions. Yeah, I'm really curious. These are all the questions that I'm asking myself. Do you currently live in India? What's your spiritual beliefs or practice that you were, brought into, even if you walked out of it? If you would like to know, okay. So, are you familiar with consciousness? Okay, so there's a study of consciousness where they are basically bringing awareness to the awareness that is, which is how I would like to consider my relationship with God, basically, like consciousness. Um, it's a good study. I don't really know how to explain it, but I feel like that would definitely benefit you in your curiosities going forward from this conversation, because Shiva is actually the understanding of consciousness and the energies that are actually around us, right? Those concepts actually spread beyond the scope of Hinduism. Okay, it actually goes into Christianity as well. In the Gnostic text, there's understanding where consciousness is basically the nirvana that people seek in order for moksha, which is karmic release or liberation of the soul. Okay, when you liberate your soul, right, you're able to see how you're individuated while still imparted with your surroundings. You choose your world that you live in, because everyone is basically operating from individuality, which is the diversity of what you've done per lifetime. When you step away, from the understanding in some cases, and you do things against your understanding of purpose, it makes it harder to really harness your chakra energy to reach that enlightenment. You should really look up the studies of like the chakra points and stuff. I don't know, like everything I'm talking about right now, it was a reverse study because I had to study myself in order to understand with self-awareness what was going on, right? Because, like I said, I was already aware of the things, but people was telling me it was something else. So I had to do the work on my own, the study on my own. And the feelings I associated them with, the text of what was being described, even in the stories, it was just like a understanding of self, if that makes sense. Like, it was like self-realization. Okay? And they'll call you crazy if you don't have the references or the resources. I have my laptop. I'll probably, if you would like, I will probably schedule a day where I can pull up my laptop and just like give direction. Because this interesting question, why do you think your relationship your infant? Maybe it's just in me, but psychologically you do. Why do you think so psychologically, I feel like that is just to help us remember in psychologically, I feel like that is to give you shape of identity or give you a sense of belonging with whatever this belief system is amongst your surrounding groups, like your family and friends. And if you go to school, like, you know how they have the mascot and you're all a part of that school, like a sense of belonging. That's what I could think. Personally, when I was a kid, I was abandoned. Okay, so I didn't really have a need for any of it. I didn't have a care for any of that. It was never where my attention was, brought to. That's why when I started trying to understand myself, right, it was easier for me because I didn't have family to impress other than a sister. And once she told me that she didn't want to be a part of my life anymore, it was like I didn't have to give any fucks. I could just explore the things that were itching at the back of my mind, like, and say it proudly instead of having people tell me their experience and distract me from finding the truth on my own. That's how come when I speak from a place of knowing that this is actually a study. For me, I think why I'm not religious, maybe. But I'm gonna put it like this: everything is necessary. Everything is necessary because if you look at it from only one viewpoint, one standpoint, you will never get it. You have to study everything that is given without ego. Ego is that identity that we were just talking about in regards to the psychology and what it does for belonging or giving you a sense of togetherness, belonging, togetherness, and there's another word I'm looking for. Identity. I'm gonna use that one too. I didn't have any of that. Like I said, I started with Baptist, then it went to Christian, but then it was just like, I'm not going to a church to read a book that I can read on my own and still have to give offerings. And if I don't have it to give, I'm looking crazy like, why aren't you giving anything to them? All of those things with love, loving the idea of everything, loving it, but still understanding my own identity within myself at this point to use it as wisdom. I didn't identify in a place where I wanted to belong with it. I identified with it as, understanding of myself and what I was experiencing. But I don't really know how to explain it because it wasn't like I was, say for instance, it just helps with symbolism. That's what I'm saying. It helps with symbolism. The more you know is the more you're able to shuffle around what's being passed through your thoughts. Where there's no static. Static came out in reverse, right? And when you hold on to a construct, it just, molds you in that identity or fashions you in that. But if you don't study the things, that is grounded in history, is what I'm going to call it, you won't see how it applies to finding nirvana. Some people get to have it from a spiritual inheritance. Like, I believe I got it from a spiritual inheritance as well. But some people, you're a study about it. I love my religion as much as I love all the other religions. Like, every time I go to a temple, I feel calm, but I don't know enough about it. See, I love the idea of Hinduism because it's very insightful in regards to the control of energies. If I find some Hindu cards, I'll be able, what I was going to say, how it helps you navigate with energies and understand in the 5D what's happening, okay? Because that's really like 5-dimensional understandings inside of Hinduism. You can teach it to someone, but it'll sound like this if you're not applying it to yourself. And applying it in a sense where you don't necessarily separate the characters and feel like you're just one of them, but apply every single one of them into You can apply yourself to one of them if that's your tribe, but I just know personally those are terms and understandings and actual energies that can be interacted with without any of the extra stuff. Like, I've never had to do any of that at all. And I definitely recommend doing some in-depth research with how Hinduism applies to consciousness. That'll be your start. Okay? And let me know what you find. 'Cause that's not my forte. I can only teach people what I can teach people. But I can definitely point you in the right direction with that. Confirmation. 6 of Swords. That'll help clear up any static that you may have, because there's definitely a God here. There's most definitely a couple of gods here. Usually when situations like that is occurring, it's because there's some form of disruption or dysregulation of energies within the God form in that area. You know, there's the Most High, but you have to really like connect. It takes more than like a day of faith. Like, you really have to really know. You have to feel it. You know, my religion is so long though. They're summing up in a book, another book, a video. You have to watch videos. Watch videos, YouTube videos. I'm telling you, it's a strategy, okay, to help you. Oh, excuse me, confirmation. Kind of like dissolve it a little faster, and then you could watch it on 2.0. That's a great idea. See, the only problem I don't like about having, thank you, I appreciate it. The only thing I don't like about having the gift of sacred sight is it comes with responsibilities. Because when you are tapped into this amount of wisdom, you know, you can't say certain things, you know, at the wrong time, on the wrong faction. And just because of how everything is sort of orchestrated in the spiritual realm, if that makes sense, it's a whole nother understanding than the physical understanding. It's definitely something that carries a lot of power. That's why I like minds. Minds kind of give a good form to how it's like seeing in spirit. My tongue will stop talking, like, or it'll be all jumbled up. It'll come out in different places. Like, I know the information, but I wouldn't be able to basically tell you anything unless it's time for you to learn it from me. It's crazy. But I use everything. Nothing is out of bounds. Everything is resourceful, necessary. See, look, you hang me. I don't turn down any knowledge, even a foolish neighbor or compadre, companion, family. If I don't agree with it, I don't agree with it. Help me understand. I know it's very different. They're not different. They're actually the same thing. It's just how you perceive it. Everything is created by God. What the universe is trying to tell them, we are just in a forgetful state when we reincarnate. But we actually are the thing we were looking for. If that says you can't divide the pantheon. There is only one. Okay. But it's many. But there's only one. When you are in your remembrance, that's when you are back in the collective consciousness. But when you are in your forgetful state, that's what you would consider a human. Demons are the ones who basically choose to be in a inferior state. The fallen are the ones who feel like they did something that was against what they would have done or should have done in regards to their actions and their character. It carries multiple meanings. I'm gonna be honest with you. It carries multiple meanings. You can't look at the spirit world and see it with physical eyes. Like, everything carries multiple meanings. Have you ever heard of the saying, a picture carries 1,000 words, or something like that? That is how you see spirit. And discernment is something that you have got to etch in stone, sharpen your blade, forge it out of fire, because if you don't have discernment, you will fall into I'm going to say you're going to fall into like a state of mind where you're fixated instead of knowing what is and what is not. Okay. I have to master discernment and see past the illusions in order to really get to this level. I'm still learning how to translate it better, for sure. But as far as seeing it and hearing it, I could do that. For my podcast version, or I'll probably just make another YouTube channel and just upload different studies, because as I'm looking at it, I can basically translate it in how my understanding came from experience, and how I can translate my experience into the understanding that's there. Okay? Like, I did it, all the experimentation on myself. The awareness of self began within. And then when certain things were presented to me, I was able to apply my experience to the understanding. And it was just like putting pieces into a puzzle. And then it all started coming together. And then I came to an epiphany moment where it was just like, I know you lying to me. That's why, in a lot of belief systems, they have like a soul factor or a spirit factor that's within you. That is the piece of you that becomes your individuated self in the all. That's why it is important to love yourself. Because if you don't love yourself, you won't see it. Love yourself enough to know what you can control and what you cannot control. How you are being guided out of the lion's den. Okay? That's just a way of saying don't identify with your environment, but when you are being given the tokens to get out of that loop of understanding, is what I'm gonna call it. Take it. Even if you gotta keep your, opinions to yourself in certain rooms, just to learn and identify with yourself. It's a real self journey. Like no one can tell you other than their story and testimony how to navigate your specific unique journey. But that's why I like using readings, because when you tell someone what's in the energies, they're able to confirm what it is that they've already been feeling. Like the two touching and agree. Because you are way in India, I'm way in Atlanta, Georgia. It's like, I don't know you. So for me to be able to relate to you something that resonates with you, that is, something, when you look at it from a good perspective, benevolent. When you look at it from a negative perspective, malevolent. Okay? You choose to look at it the way you choose to look at it. I look at things from both spectrums. That's why I get tongue twisted a lot as well, because I know if I say something a certain way, someone can take it the wrong way, as opposed to what I was trying to project out. They received it with like a free for all, but there's rules. Do unto others that you would like done unto yourself is a good rule of thumb. In regards to what I was saying when I first opened up this reading, with do, things that make you feel free. Just don't hurt nobody. Mastering your emotions is definitely something that I have to do. And I never was the type to do the business thing. Like it was always just like a from my heart thing. Like I chose to do things from my heart. I didn't like selling anything. Okay, definitely. I'm about to log out myself. But thank you for having the conversation with me. Until next time, Sakura.